Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 104 with Caleb Wiles. Now, I hope it came off in the interview, but we spent quite a few days with Caleb. I got to watch his lecture, jam out with him, and we really had a good time with this episode, hung out, and I hope that you guys really enjoy it as much as I did. And if you don't know who Caleb is, I do recommend giving him a Google and taking a peek at some of the amazing stuff that he's created. Just to give you guys a quick reminder, there are still Discourse in Magic t-shirts available. So if you like this podcast, if you listen to it, on your drive to work or when you get home or whenever the heck you do, and you want to support us a little bit, grab a t-shirt and send us a photo. And we love sharing the photos of you guys wearing the t-shirts. It's been mega cool. So here you go. Episode 104 with Caleb Wiles. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a close personal friend as of hanging out in Toronto. Super pumped to have him on the podcast. He's a listener of the podcast, wildly talented. You've bought his stuff. You watched him on Penn and Teller Fool Us, and now we're here to dive in deep. We're here with Caleb Wiles. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Good to have you here, and it's another one of those in-person interviews.
Yeah.
So, we're pretty lucky to have you here in Toronto to do some magic. And let's dive in at the very beginning, which is, how did you get into magic?
I got into magic by watching an infomercial late at night.
That's awesome.
I think it was Larry Anderson had a Jaw Droppers VHS set. It was over $100, which I didn't have at the time, and I thought, there's got to be a way of learning this magic stuff in a cheaper
reasonable
way.
price. Yeah.
So I went to the public library and just read everything they had, ordered all the books from the neighbor libraries, and one of them mentioned there might be a magic club in your city, and I just reached out, found somebody, and it just sort of went from there.
That's cool. We actually recently heard a lot of people who started at their public library, which
I never even knew that was a
so
resource.
not something.
Because I'm a millennial, right? Like I don't go to the library for information I never had.
Yeah, I would never tell someone to be like, "Oh, I'm starting magic. Where should I go?" I'd be like, "Head to a library."
Yeah,
that's what you
not happening.
So that's one of those things where you could still probably find a book, good book in your library. Maybe not still what I would recommend now that we have these resources, but again, like anywhere you can probably find stuff that is like out of print and like made by the best in the world. And like
when I was in high school, I went to the Toronto Reference Library to do a research project as a field trip, and we got this sort of like tour and introduction, and the tour guide asked me what my hobbies were, and I said magic, and he was like, "Oh, I want books on magic, recommend things." So I don't know if he got them. I never went back and checked, but I was like, "Get Card College, get this, get that, 13 steps, let's go."
I think one of my first was Bill Tarr's Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and its big claim was that it had all these illustrations, which made it so much easier to learn. And also we were sort of like a middle-income family, and computers were new, so I didn't have a computer at home, so I remember my mom taking me to the library so that I could access the internet, and then it would have 30 minutes, and there was a time I think Penguin Magic was the only place that had video demos, and like YouTube hadn't really started, so there was a time where I had watched I think every magic video on the internet because there weren't that many.
So paint us a little bit of a picture of how you got from there to a little bit about what you do now.
Yeah, so I guess meeting magicians was where I really felt like these are my sort of people. And then especially as I started diving deeper, especially into card magic, I got super obsessed with the hobby, as I tend to do with any hobby I partake in. And I sort of studied the minutia of card magic, and like I wanted to learn every version of an ace assembly so I could get the best version.
Right.
I had no goals in mind about performing for real people or anything. I just wanted to study it for myself. And then I would, slowly start to show family and get good reactions. So I'd show kids at school, and sort of the typical progression of like all of a sudden you become the magic guy, and that leads to, public performances and that sort of a thing.
Awesome. And now you are a little bit more of a creator, which is gnarly because you created some real cool stuff. And you just lectured at the Toronto Magic Club, which was very cool. So talk to us a little bit about creating. We've heard, and sort of we had a little bit of a conversation before we turned the mics on, which I think is a good place to start for people who listen to the podcast, because we used to theme our months. And we had a month called Creativity Month. And at the end of every month, we would try to wrap up and see like what the commonality was. And we really struggled to do that, except with Creativity Month. Creativity Month, we came to this really obvious conclusion that once you are working within a certain set of limitations, once you can do this, but you can't do this, whether you self-impose them or whether they're imposed on you, that's one of the best tools that there is to learn how to be creative. So we mentioned it off mic before that you sort of use that, but walk us through what it's like for you to create stuff and be original.
Sure. So basically, the components to originality are you need an inspiration. And I think the best place to get inspiration, especially when you're first starting out and you don't know what the magic world has to offer, you haven't read all the books and you're not well versed, is you just have a ton of intake. So read a ton of books, watch a bunch of DVDs, go to conventions, meet a lot of magicians, and you're just bound to see things that you identify with and you want to play with. And once you find something that interests you, you just have to play with it. So I'm the kind of guy who would leave cards sitting out everywhere like all of us and pick it up and instantly go into a trick. And if you do the trick 100 times for yourself, you're going to stumble upon things that are happy accidents, and it sort of pushes you in a direction. And then you were talking about setting limitations. And I think the idea of, setting those constraints, even if they're completely artificial, gives you sort of a roadmap. So if you think about, you can see the edges of the problem and you could say, okay, well, I can't do this because I have to give the deck away at the end. And then you read some other magic book. It might be months later and you go, oh, well, that's a way I could use that same structure here. So I'm big on the structure of magic tricks and also using the structure as method. I think magicians don't do that as well as they should. They tend to think of magic as two components when they're creating. They have the method itself, which is the sleight of hand or your setup or the gaffed cards. And then they have the presentation, which the argument is always like, which one comes first? And I've never quite understood that argument, at least with the way that I create magic. To me, they're part of the same whole. And presentation is part of the method if you're doing it right. And sometimes you can build a presentation around the method, and that is a fully functional way of creating magic as well. So, I think the constraint is a really important idea.
For sure. And I watched in your lecture a few different ideas about sort of covering shady or sketchy parts of the method with interesting and compelling presentations. And it's just a reminder to people who are coming up with their own things. And particularly, I wanted to mention, you just said, people who don't know that much about what's out there, maybe don't have like a full understanding of a repertoire. If you've come up with a very creative presentation, see how you can run with it, and it might allow you to disguise a method. I know that oftentimes it's not ideal, but oftentimes I've come up with a presentation in order to hide the method, and it goes by seamlessly only because I found a presentation that's fitting with it.
Yeah, they need to work in tandem, and they need to both sort of buoy each other up. And if you do it right, to me, I like bulletproof magic. So I don't like magic that's angly. I don't like magic that works 99% of the time. And we all make mistakes. So there's things that go wrong and you just mess up. But I don't want when the move happens, you think, okay,
no one look. Here
we go. You're nervous. Like if you have a nervous pit, feeling in the pit of your stomach, it's probably not where it needs to be. So I just avoid all that sort of magic, and I want things that are, surefire, bulletproof magic. All the things I create, not necessarily intentionally, but they're all always sort of beginner to intermediate sleight of hand level. I still don't do a good pass. I just never found a situation in magic where I felt like the pass was the best thing to do at that particular moment. There's almost always some other alternative that's not only easier, it's usually better.
For sure. I mean, I don't have a good pass either. And it was my go-to control for about a year until I realized I can spread the cards and cut them. And it is just as effective, and I don't have to feel uncomfortable, right? Like I can just casually talk, and it's the same thing.
I'm also very interested in meta magic, I guess I call it. So it's hard to give lots of examples, but it's one of those things you know it when you see it. So I will see a magician perform a pass, whether it's a good pass or not a good pass. They will secretly control the card at the top of the deck, and then the next thing they do is riffle shuffle the cards in their hands. And they keep the top card on top. And you think,
you're going to riffle shuffle the cards. Why would you do a pass? You could shuffle them and change the top card.
Yeah.
Nothing bugs me more than than someone putting a card in the middle of the deck, doing a pass, and then doing some sort of crazy cut or something. Right. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Like, I have no understanding. Like, the point of using a pass would be to, show a card, put it in the middle of the deck, put the deck on the table, and you've done all the work that you have to do. But if you're going to handle the cards and prove that you can handle them like that, then what are you doing? Either handle them like that and get the card to the top while you're doing a fancy cut, or don't handle them like that and do your pass or something.
Yeah. Tony Chang, I am a listener, as you mentioned on the podcast. He had a great episode, and he talked about some of the things, we've talked about at conventions before, where just because a move has a name and magicians know, like, in the world, this is a thing. So an Elmsley count or a side steal, it's like there's this meta magic where they think because they're doing a move that has a name in this thing we call sleight of hand, that it just works. And no, you're not like forget about all of that. Like, look at yourself in a mirror. You're turning over a card. Does it look like you're turning over a card? I don't care what download you bought. Yeah. Did you turn over the card or not? It's a hard thing when you're starting out in Magic to sort of see through that. But I feel like the people who do the best in Magic are the people who recognize that. And sometimes it's young kids. I mean, I was at Magi Fest and there was 10, 12-year-old kids who were doing killer magic because they were doing magic that was out at their level. Right. And it made sense in the context of performance, and they weren't trying to reach outside of that to do the coolest move. They'd obviously worked on the whole package.
And it's also so hard, and I think we spoke about this in other episodes, but it is so hard to forget. Like, it's so hard to know what it's like to be a spectator. You forget what humans do. Like, you forget how humans turn cards over and how humans handle cards and handle coins, because the only thing that you consume of people handling those props is the way magicians would. I have a really funny story, so I'll tell quickly. I'm sure I've told it before, but my roommate is a magician, and I got a weird knock on my door once, and I opened the door, and it was his girlfriend in his straitjacket. And she was like, I was like, if you could do it, I could probably do it. And she couldn't get out of it. And it was the first time in my life that I've ever seen someone not get out of a straitjacket. Sure. I've only ever seen people get out of a straitjacket. You forget how difficult it is to get out of a straitjacket. Yeah. And, different things like this, which, particularly I love to think that the younger people have an advantage because their minds aren't ruined by decades worth of magic. And that's why, you see someone young, they're like, I created this new thing. You're like, fuck yeah. Like, even if it sucks, fuck yeah. That's a presentation I've never heard of before. That's a move. That's weird as hell. But seems like you came out keep at that. Don't read anything.
I'm with you on that. I love things, and this goes outside of Magic. I would rather see something new and original and something you're passionate about than something good. So I have a disdain for mediocre magic that's just fine being mediocre. So I don't care if you do Vanishing Bandana. I mean, I hate the trick. Yeah, but if you do Vanishing Bandana, an Invisible Deck, and Chop Cup, and that just is good enough for you, and you never want to progress past that, even if you want to keep the same tricks, but put your own spin on them, that's the kind of magic I hate. I would much rather see somebody fumble through something that's original and they're trying to bring themselves and express themselves with the trick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for not worrying about what the magic community is thinking and just doing what you want to do with your magic. There's a lot of times where I'll show someone at the magic shop and they're like, oh, that's just similar to this, but it's kind of weird. And it's don't think of it in that context. Yeah. I don't want to know what move I could be doing here unless it's actually going to better it, not change the whole structure. You said that when you're creating, you try to think of method and presentation simultaneously. Yes. Right. And to me, that just seems impossible. I've never created a trick that way. I'm either this is a cool method. What's the presentation? Or I want to do this. What method do I have to do it? So what's your starting point?
I mean, the starting point is just the original inspiration. So one of the tricks I'm most proud of, I haven't released it to the Magic community. Very few people have seen me do it, but it's work on the Magic Square. And the Magic Square has just always interested me. I'm a mathematician in the background. I used to be a math teacher. Yes. So that's the kind of thing that I'm like, okay, I like this trick. What are other versions of it? And I saw Andy Gladwin had a version with playing cards and they turned upside down so that the numbers, a 2 and a 5 written digitally turned upside down. oh, it's still an actual number. And like, okay, now he has two numbers that you can do the magic square with. And then a gentleman by the name of James Solberg sent me a book because he knew I was interested in the magic square. So this is a new book he wrote that was like on the mathematics behind the magic square, a little bit about the magic, but mostly the mathematics. So it's a very niche thing that even in magic, there's a small number of people who are interested,
like,
right?
Really pursuing it.
But because I was inspired, I just kept going forward. And then reading that book, I had new ideas of, how can we do, the idea that I first saw Andy do with the upside down numbers. I want to do it with a named number. I'm going to have somebody name a number and do that. How could that work? I read the book. Oh, he has it set this much. Okay, what if I change the constraints a little bit? So he had a method where if you named a number between, let's say, 150 and 250, he could reverse the magic square. And I think, well, that's a little bit crazy. Maybe
it's hard to add that math up live.
Yeah, how can I do this? Yeah. So then I just worked on, okay, how can I get the presentation to where we can make this something I can do on stage? So I said, well, I have the audience write numbers down. I do add a number. And then instead of just telling somebody to name a number, I say, could you guess the total? And in a way of like helping them, I say, you're going to try this feat of lightning calculation. I'll add them up. All right, I'll give you a hint. It's between 150 and 170. What do you think it is? So now they're naming a number legitimately, but for my method, I'm constraining them now to 20 numbers that they can name.
Right.
And then I go back to James and I go, okay, what if I narrow it down to 20 numbers? Does that help you out? And he goes, yeah, we can play around with what the range is. And eventually we work together. And every time, like, he would have a new method, I would add a presentation on top that would inform his next method. And this is over the course of 2 years,
right? Of course,
correspondence back and forth. But now we have a really awesome trick that there's no quick way of getting there. It's just lots of thinking and lots of toiling with a trick that isn't that great until it's great. That's sort of my creative process. It's not very efficient, but that's the way my brain thinks.
That's sort of like the way you have to go about it. That's the point of sort of creativity, right? It's not necessarily a direct, okay, give me 4 months and you'll have your result, right? Yeah. It's not calculated.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like, I think collaboration is something that is so valuable in magic.
Big time.
But only with the right person. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. So I have a core group of guys, and that core group has grown over the years as I've gone to conventions. I just meet people who I, interact with and hit it off with. So I have ideas that I'll sort of build up, and then I'll unleash them on all my friends and do Skype sessions, and I'm super excited about it. And I'm writing down every idea. And a lot of times I'll talk to one person, and then they give me an idea, and I have to go back and talk to the other person because now it's sort of like I'm the middleman in this craziness of ideas moving forward. But I'm a big believer. You just listen to everything anybody has to say, but never assume they know more than you. Like, you're the one who really cares about this magic square trick. It's not necessarily their thing, but if you keep at it, there's so many tricks that were just monstrosities when I shared them with my friends, and they just slowly start giving me ideas, and eventually we whittle it down. And then the same people who hated the trick a year ago think it's the best thing I've ever done a year later.
I think the approach of going at working with people, something that we do at this podcast, going at working with people from the perspective of, I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm doing. This is just a thing. Hope you can, be a part of it. Like, we come at this podcast from the perspective of, two young guys who are, we've both been doing magic for a long time, often even longer than many of the guests that come on, but we're not coming from it to say like, this is magic, like, come against us, like everything. As a matter of fact, one of the main criticisms we get is we never fight with people when they come on. Like, we just agree with them and tell them, that's
we
great.
We contradict ourselves every other episode because we have one guest say one thing, we agree, the next one says the opposite, we agree.
So I mean, not that that's what you should do in creating magic, but when you're working with people, I love the idea of being endlessly open and being you're a student, we're a student, that's why you're seeking advice and help and
that's
thoughts.
What this podcast is, right? Like, we're trying to give both sides of the coin. Maybe I firmly disagree with whatever Tony Chang said. I don't, but let's say I really, really did. That's fine. That's me. That could be you at home, but maybe someone else didn't, and we don't need to disregard his opinion because it's not in line with ours necessarily.
I think one important thing too is to remove all ego from magic,
which is next to impossible.
It's really hard. It's really hard. But I mean, I have friends who they'll just say, "That sucks. Why are you doing that?" And that I've seen this. You're better. Why did you stop thinking here? And I have a smaller group of friends who I'm comfortable giving that advice to, but those are the friends who I make the biggest leaps with on method and presentation and anything I'm working on, because they feel completely comfortable telling me what they think. And it doesn't hurt it's not even that I have to put on a brave face and think, oh, that hurt, but I'm going to keep going. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just an idea. It doesn't define me. I still have my family. I still have my job. Like, it's a card trick. So tell me what you think. And you mentioned earlier, I'm a creator more than a performer. So I love to perform, but really performing is only just another constraint. Like, I want my magic, I want my magic to be interesting to people, and I want people to enjoy it, but I do not create magic for my audience. Like, I only perform it so I can prove that the thing that I created has merit in my own mind.
It reminds me, your magic reminds me of playing a game like Minecraft, where you are not building your world so that other people can walk through it. You play Minecraft, you know what I mean? Yeah, that feeling. You just want to build a big house, and you want to make a model that looks just like Harry Potter, and you want to, it's not for anybody else. If you want to invite someone else, come take a look at it. If you can share it in some interesting ways, fantastic. But you're doing it for yourself. One of the ways that really rang true was watching your presentations as the deck acting like a computer.
Sure.
Which is something I've never seen anybody do that before. And it was creative, it was interesting, and it clearly had to do with what you care about or what you think is interesting, right? So that was a beautiful example of that.
Yeah.
I just want to play Minecraft now. I'm all excited. I'm just like, it's been a while.
I should preface all the things I say is that I'm a performing magician, but as a sort of a semi-pro. So I do, 2 shows a month, and I only do shows that I think are going to be fun.
Right.
I charge money. And I try, again, money is just another constraint. Like, if I come to the show for free or for too small of a fee, then I get there and they are not holding the magic in the esteem that I want them to hold it into. Versus if I charge a higher fee and they know I've been on television and I come to their event and there's like not a celebrity to it, but they're like anticipating it and they're making sure the stage is set and they're making sure the mic is working. Versus if you go and you do it for $100, you're probably not going to have that. So again, it's just another constraint.
I have the difference between, hey, we got a magician and we got a magician.
Like, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
There's magic's coming.
Now, I will say, like, my material that I create and have released to magicians is very commercial. Just the way my brain thinks, and card magic is the kind of stuff you would do if you were a restaurant worker, or if you're just a kid who wants to know a bunch of tricks because you're always showing your friends at high school. And it's a creative, different magic that's not too difficult. For my stand-up performance, though, that's where it's almost unrecognizable compared to the close-up magic that people know me for.
Right.
So it's very math-based, very nerdy-based, lots of nerd culture jokes that are in the show. And it's one of those things where, if you're into that kind of thing, hopefully you are really into my show. I don't come across at all as a normal magician. But then again, if you're looking for, just a general magic for all ages, all interests, then that's not the show that's probably going to work for you. I have this idea of a Venn diagram of here's the things that I enjoy in magic. And then there's another circle of here's the things that I can do mentally and physically. And then there's another circle of the audience of who would like this. And at some point there's an intersection, which is my intersection is probably much smaller than many performing magicians. But those people I feel like could be my super fans, the people who, they're my people, that sort of thing.
I think that's really interesting. You create magic to release to the magic community that is for the magic community. It's for workers and it's stuff that they will appreciate for magic in itself.
Yep.
Whereas the stuff that's in your show, it's your fucking show,
it's
right?
My show, yep.
You want to do what you want to do on stage, which I think is beautiful. It's something that I think a lot of magicians struggle to do is find a way to express themselves properly on stage.
Sure.
And that's really what makes your show good, right? Is by having a character and putting some sort of personality into it.
Yeah. And the thing, again, it just keeps coming back to constraints. So for many years, I just had a show coming up and I need to do 45 minutes.
Right.
What 45 minutes am I going to do? And I would just look at the new trick I'm working on and this one I've always done. And I just did a random 45 minutes of tricks. And the through line for my show was the most artificial. Let me borrow $20 in the beginning and then I'll reference it a few times and then it's in the limit or something at the end. It was very standard magic. And then at a certain point, and I got good reactions, but at a certain point, I just didn't feel like because I'm not pursuing magic as a full-time profession, I often would think, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not doing material that's interesting to me, and I'm not doing it for the money. I might as well just be home. There's no point. So then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to build my own thing. And honestly, if you saw my show in the beginning of that building, it was way worse than if I just did my standard general magic show. But I feel like I'm climbing that hill, and then eventually I'll surpass where I used to be. And then,
And part of it, even for the people who are performing for a living, but part of it is really making sure that you enjoy what you do. Like, we have this weird hobby, like if you're choosing to do this, whether it's for money or not, you should be enjoying it. You should,
right.
Fuck, the amount of people who don't like what they do doing magic is crazy. And you think about it, the amount of people in this world who have jobs that just absolutely suck and they hate their jobs, and it's not doing card tricks. And then all of a sudden we have this amazing opportunity to make a living or not doing magic, and then people end up doing the goddamn banana bandana. And you end up doing but it's just a really good example, because I don't remember who brought it up. I think it was Harrison Greenbaum.
Love that guy.
Yeah, really brilliant guy. And he was saying, like, you're not even scripting it yourself. There's an audio that plays. Yeah. So not only is it not your trick in terms of the performance, which is fine, but then you're not even doing anything. You're just standing there.
It's not your method. It's not you.
Sure.
If they slapped your face on a robot, it would be verbatim. It would be exactly the same. And the point on that is, I guess you could probably enjoy doing it because you enjoy getting the laughs. And listen,
you used to do it,
I used to do it. Yeah.
But wouldn't you enjoy something more that resonates with you? And I'm not trying to choke everyone and saying, like, you have to be a creator, you have to do this. I don't care. Do someone's presentation.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, do someone else's trick, but put you into it, because the joy that comes out of that trick working is tenfold to the joy of doing literally nothing.
It's weird. That's sort of like putting your own sort of self-expression into your magic. This is a big jump that I'm making, but I think it actually, like, counter to what you might think, removes some of the ego surrounding it, because it stops it being and I fooled you, and I fooled you, and I fooled you, where you're like, this is just what I like, take it or leave it, appreciate it or not, and it's not, I got the best fucking trick because you don't know nothing, you lame piece of shit. You know what I mean?
So my character that I strive for, who knows if I actually meet this character, is that I want to be like just a super excited guy, as I really am. Like, I'm so excited to meet you guys. I got tricks in my pocket that I'm never going to show any person ever, but I paid $30 for them. I think the math is cool. I'm going to show it to you. And that's enough for me. I don't need it to go further than that, because I just like magic so much. And I want that to come through to my audience. I'm a curator of magic. I'm a conduit to these cool things that exist, not because I create them, just our world is amazing. I found some particularly amazing things that interest me, and I want to share them with you. Some of the things I do are, I have to combat, I solve a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded. I do a magic square lightning calculation. I'm doing these things that they could be, look at me, I'm so special, I have these superhuman abilities, but I try to make it, a different spin on that, where it's you could do this too. Isn't it cool that a human could do this? Obviously the work I put into this is astronomical compared to the value that I got. But there are other things that you could do, and you could have a cool thing. And I hope that comes through to where it doesn't seem egocentric. It's look at this cool world we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also you can showcase a talent for something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any passion in what you're doing, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Even people like skateboarders, you know what I mean? They have a tight-knit community where they share and they express and they have their own style and they put it all in there. And then they're all also the bad side of it too, where there's competition and things like that. And I don't know, I think there's a very interesting sort of overlap between all sorts of art forms where you have this ability to innovate, right?
Right. And we innovate. I love if I show my tricks that I did in my lecture to a layman, like let's say I have a new version of Triumph, for example,
Right.
they would be like, "Oh, that's cool." He shuffled the cards face up and face down. They all came out. My card was face up, whatever. I do the trick. They probably wouldn't recognize the differences between the Vernon method and the Zero, and I do the Jennings Goodwin display. Like they're not going to know the differences to that. So only within that tight knit community can people see where you're innovating. And I mean, it could be in very small ways. Like again, like that idea of the minutia of card magic of like, oh wow, you moved your finger an inch over and that looks amazingly better. Like I just don't get the competition sometimes, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
We all love this weird thing. Let's just bond over that. The world is huge. Like magicians competing. I'm like, there's so many laymen. Like most people have never seen magic. Like,
most people are a layman.
Yeah, it's like and then they're like, oh, I don't do, I've been doing Rubik's Cube magic since before Stephen Brundage got popular. Like now everybody sort of does it. So now I tell people, I do Rubik's Cube on my show. And they go like, oh, seriously, like you're just going with the flow. But anyway, even that, like, which feels like it's saturated in still most people have still never seen a Rubik's Cube trick. Like,
right, yeah.
Like it's true.
The world is big.
The joke, what is it? 4.6 trillion is the number of magicians doing Rubik's Cube magic. Yeah, and it's true. And again, it's one of those things about trying to take your mind outside of the magic community for a bit, just to look at it all and say, I can do this trick. Just because it's a classic doesn't mean that people have seen it. No one's seen it. What is it like? People in their lifetime on average have seen 1.5 magic shows, right?
Yeah.
Like no one's seen your goddamn trick. And and listen, and
if they have, another one that they haven't. You know what I mean?
And this is a knock against magicians, but if they've seen it, they probably, for most performers, they don't remember it. Like most people's experience with magic was fun. And that was it.
Let's go get drinks.
I mean, they're not like, oh, remember when he had the card go in the box, but then later it was in his wall. Like, some things
when someone's like, oh, you're a magician? I saw this amazing magician. I'm like, oh, cool. What did he do? And they're like, he blew my mind.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. He did magic. It was unbelievable. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk a little bit about the overlap between magic and, I know you're a fan of wrestling.
Yes.
And a really cool thing to talk about the overlap for, and just to do a little bit of a dummy preface to it, is, it's not real. Spoilers. Sorry, guys. I was talking about magic. No, kidding. Like wrestling, it's not real, but people still engage in it in a very similar way. They watch it. They enjoy it. And there's a lot of, the same faking.
More than magic.
Yes. way more than magic. There's often like faking of things going on and choreographed faking and there's a big huge community. It's one of the most watched types of videos on the internet. So I wanted to dive into it because we were chatting a little bit earlier. Talk a little bit about that overlap.
So I've been a pro wrestling fan. Every hobby I have lots of little hobbies. Board games, I'm huge into board games. I'm huge into pro wrestling, comic books, and I just dive in deep. My sister told me like one time, I hope you never like try drugs because you'll just like go off the deep end on this. So I've liked pro wrestling since I was a kid, and that's probably the reason I like it. It has that nostalgia to it. But there's lots of overlap between magic and pro wrestling. I'm not actually the first magician to come across this idea. So Max Maven just has a new DVD come out called Kayfabe, which is a wrestling term. You can listen to one of his conversations somewhere and you can hear him talk about that. Curtis Cam has a little booklet out called Wrestling with Magic. So I'm not the first person to come across this, but wrestling is unique in the entertainment world because it's interactive. So first of all, it's similar to magic because people go to it not believing it's real. Occasionally I will meet people and they will say, why do you like pro wrestling? It's fake, right?
Yeah.
And I've never understood that argument because like all entertainment forms are fake, like, like CSI or like whatever shit, Game of Thrones, it's all fake.
100%.
Like sports, I guess I'll stay out of that because I'm not a sports guy, but like, okay, let's say sports are legit, but it takes a lot of time. You have to really like devote yourself to following it. You have to watch a 3-hour game.
It's real life.
Yeah.
Real life is boring and then there's ups and lows.
Yes,
and
maybe I already have
that. I already have that.
Right. And what I like about pro wrestling is it is what they call a work. So it's something that it's choreographed. They know who's going to win and lose. They know what the story is that they're going to tell. But because of that, they can make every story exciting if they do their jobs correctly. And it's interactive because people come to a wrestling show with the same mentality they come to a magic show. I'm going to pay my ticket. I'm going to live in fantasy world where for the next 2 hours, I'm going to cheer for the good guy or cheer for the bad guy, whatever I want to do. I get to be my own person. I get to identify with the characters I want to identify. It's like watching superheroes in real life, like mythical figures. Just the atmosphere is there, but nobody believes it's real. We're just pretending together. And again, it's this sort of meta thing of like, I know that you know that you know that I know, and it's not real. And Magic is the same way. People don't think, for the most part. I mean, if you're doing mentalism, maybe you have believers in the audience, but people don't believe mystical powers made the card come to the top of the deck. So
they think you have fast hands or the deck's not normal or something. Nobody's like, okay, that card floated, through the ether and landed on top of the cards.
And both of them have the thing, like wrestling is, I love it, and it's very cartoony and soap opera-ish, and it's got bad acting, and like you have to come to it with a like, all right, let's do this. This is going to be fun. I watch a pro wrestling company called Chikara Pro Wrestling, and it's a very small company in Philadelphia, and they do shows across the East Coast, and they do like pay-per-view events over the internet, and they have masked wrestlers who have literal superpowers. One guy can make everything go in slow motion, so his opponent fights in slow motion, the referee fights in slow motion, and counts in slow motion. And the best part is the entire crowd, the 200 people who have paid their ticket to be there, we cheer in slow motion together.
That's amazing.
So it's so like nobody in that audience thinks it's real, but we're all there to play. And Magic is, you have to bring that attitude too, because Magic has a connotation. I think it's starting to overcome this, but it was sort of a hokey thing, a cheesy thing, and like then now Fool Us and America's Got Talent has sort of brought it to be a cooler entertainment genre. But still, the audience has to come and say, all right, I'm not going to bring my ego. I'm going to let you pretend you're real. I'm going to pretend you're real, and we're going to have some fun.
For sure. Yeah. And that's something that I think that we want more and more of in Magic, which is people coming to have fun. People, it's hard because you think about it like, and again, it's a little bit different than pro wrestling or other types of theater because the point isn't to deceive. The point of the other types of theater isn't to prove against your will that it is real, where Magic is, even though we're all wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it's not real. But, in Magic, and I think Teller said it, and I'm paraphrasing, but, in Peter Pan, he flies across the stage and you all pretend that he flew across the stage. In Magic, he flies through a hoop so that you don't make that pretending. You're not pretending. You're like, crap. I don't know. But again, there's an innate knowledge that it isn't real. But just the idea that people are coming out to a show to play with you, it's such our job as magicians to paint that environment and to make that as accessible as possible and to make it, fun for people to want to play with us and not feel like we are being mean by, I know something you don't know, or I'm better than you, or, it's not like that. We're all going to have this fun together, and hopefully you can have it with us.
And the cool thing too that is a big overlap between the two genres is in Magic, it's unlike theater where you just sit there and watch, and if you weren't there, the show wouldn't change. Everything would be the exact same. Yeah. But in Magic, you interact and you say, can I shuffle the deck? And he says, name a number. And what was your grandmother's
Can I shuffle the deck? Name a number.
That's right.
Sorry, I said, can I shuffle the deck?
That's right. But you participate in the show, and what you do makes a difference in how the show goes. And you feel that. And in wrestling, it's the same way. The wrestlers, a lot of times people will say it's fake, it's all choreographed. And they're correct in the sense that they have a basic structure and that it's more like jazz, I guess, than it is like a scripted performance. They don't know exactly when they're going to kick and punch and fly off the top rope. They do the rest. I used to be a ring announcer for pro wrestling and a referee, and we would go over the match beforehand. And most guys would just say, "Okay, here's how we're going to end. Here's the cue for that, and here's one move I want to make sure and get in for this sequence here." But everything else, they say, "Well, we're going to call it in the ring," and they listen to the crowd and. Like literally, if the crowd starts chanting for the guy who's getting beat up and he's the good guy he's the underdog, he will start to fight back at that moment. And the bad guy will knock him back down and they'll get the crowd. And they're manipulating the reactions of the crowd. But the crowd, what they do actually changes the story of the match. And I think there's not many entertainment genres where that's a thing.
Yeah. And like that can't exist in sports. right?
Yeah.
Because like sports are real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're actually competing to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
There's just this one little parallel I want to make. I think I've never really thought about magic and pro wrestling side by side, but I love Jonah's story about why he's a left-handed magician. Is that he was mirroring David Copperfield.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool.
Watching, I would go over to my friends' houses and I would try to do, the Rey Mysterio moves.
Sure,
And
right.
we'd wrestle in the basement and like none of us could do backflips. We didn't have a ring. We just like kind of got hurt and looked like idiots, but we felt like kings. We felt like these big ass like buff wrestlers. Like I'm a man, you know what I mean?
That's the cool thing. You're living vicariously through the wrestlers and sort of like the magician. Like, wow, that's cool that guy can solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Like, it's not that particular skill is something you like, but you're like, wow, that guy had focus. He had a goal. He worked really hard for this, again, like a small reward. Like he worked so hard so that I could enjoy this 2 minutes. It's sort of the feeling of it. Yeah.
And I love, that's the way I totally reflect on that, as a kid when I was a big fan of pro wrestling, mega young, but I remember it. And I remember like, doing like Rey Mysterio 619 or whatever the heck. Right. Like, like I remember that. Actually, just the other day I was thinking about, this will make sense to nobody. Yeah, but I was thinking about this guy who was, I don't remember his name, was Carlito Caribbean Cool.
Yes, yeah.
And he would chew an apple and he would walk to the guy and he would, I spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool. Yeah. And that was his intro. And like, it's so ridiculous to me, but it's so funny and you're like on board with it and you love it. And it's like, you become a real fan of it. You watch these things happen and and there's no surprise that pro wrestling is one of the top most viewed things on YouTube because you cannot be more of a fan of something where legitimately what you do matters. It's theatrically made to get you as excited as possible. Not like sports where you can watch a game that's 7-0.
And also failure is not a bad part of pro wrestling.
That's true.
Whereas like I want to take up pro wrestling in my spare time in my basement with my friends. Fine, you can like look like idiots and have fun. If you're like, I love, Crosby, I want to be a hockey player. You're like, okay, you're gonna play hockey for hours every day and like break your body and hate your life trying to get there. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Not to say that pro wrestlers aren't amazing athletes and that they don't push their bodies, because of course they do, but it's a different sort of experience for the fan at home trying to live vicariously, right?
And it makes it so Paul Harris has that whole like state of astonishment, and we all have these boxes of magic, iPhone that just goes in the technology box. I don't need to know how it works. I just know that's labeled as technology, and like magic, if it's good, you have no box to put it in, and you're sent back to that childhood. And wrestling is the same way. Like you feel the emotion, even though you know what it is, you just feel the emotion. You get wrapped up in it, and you feel like a kid again. So,
and I'm sure there's people listening to this going, "What the fuck are you?"
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's right. We don't care. We're gonna fight after this. So I wanted to very quickly talk. Yeah, we're gonna move the cushions, make a ring, right? I wanted to talk a little bit about another viral sensation, which is Penn and Teller Fool Us. I know that. I've seen that video many times. Really cool. It was cool to watch you break it down in the lecture. And it was just cool to hear a lot about it. So can you talk a little about that experience and what it was like being on the show?
Yeah, so I've created a few tricks that I feel like are magician foolers. I would just show them off at conventions. And then I never really thought about trying out for Fool Us. It hadn't really crossed my mind, but I was at a convention one time, and my absolute favorite magician in the world by far is Aussie Wind. And
he's incredible. Yeah.
We had met once before, but I didn't think he knew who I was. And I'm walking in Magic Fest, and he says, "Hey, Caleb, come here for a second." So I'm like blown away, like, oh my God, Aussie Wind knows who I am. And now we've been friends. But I walk over, and he goes, "Yeah, I had my friend Aaron Bitterman do your trick. I suggested you do your trick on basically like a different country version of Fool Us, and Max Maven was the judge in this version."
Right, yeah.
So
I've seen it. I've seen the Israeli one.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
so I'm like, somebody did on, and it's not the first time. Like, we also had Lu Chen. He did one of my tricks re-swindled, and like, I didn't find out from him. Like, just somebody was like, "Oh yeah, it's cool that your trick was on, Taiwanese TV or whatever." I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, what is this? So, so I looked it up. I'm like, that was amazing. So then I was like, well, he did it on like a version of Fool Us, but I still didn't like make the click. Like, maybe I could do this. I guess confidence in my performing abilities or whatever. And then I got an email from 2 magicians the next season, and they're like, "Hey, do you mind if I submit 26 factorial, which is the trick that I submitted for Fool Us?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute! Like normally I would just say yes, but I kind of feel like I want to try that." Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, 26 factorial is the trick I wish you would have done on that show because that's a fucking great trick.
So I wish that was a trick as well. So I submitted that trick. It's because it hits what the show is fooling. Can you fool Penn and Teller? And that's a trick that I think has a very good chance of fooling Penn and Teller. It fools lots of magicians.
It's so good.
I'm not sure I know what it is.
I'm really excited to see it, man.
You'll have to see it. It's so good. It was the last trick in his lecture. I was just looking around like, did anyone else see that? That was the craziest thing.
Yeah, and it's not. You guys had this on an earlier episode, but it has that moment of like where you're like, no, and then like after that, they're like basically agreeing. If what happens is the thing I'm thinking it's going to happen, I'm going to be blown away. So they're agreeing before, and I'm like, too late, it's already done. Boom,
so
boom, boom.
Good.
So anyway, I submitted that trick. I got a call back from the producers, and they're like, "Hey, we liked that trick, but we liked a couple of the other ones. But they just randomly Googled me and found the stuff that I'd released to magicians. So one of the tricks was an 8-ball trick I have, which is basically a double lift and a color change. And I thought, well, that's not going to fool Penn and Teller. But again, these producers, they're not choosing things
that are going to
as magicians.
Right, yeah.
They don't know how any of it works. So like to them, a double lift, it fooled them. They don't know how it works.
Yeah. They're just like, what is our target demographic right now?
They're thinking about the television segment. So then the other trick that they liked was an earlier version of what I actually ended up performing, which was a trick I called fully automatic card trick. And the premise is that I don't even do the trick. I let the spectator do it. And in the deck, there are instruction cards that tell the spectator what to do. Shuffle the cards now, deal the cards now. And basically they get to do everything. They get to be the magician, and they're empowered to find the selected card, and then all these other things happen. So that's the trick that they liked. So I would have preferred to do the 26 factorial as a magician fooler.
So good.
But they liked the premise, and I kind of got behind the premise of, it'd be cool if Allison Hannigan did a trick. Nobody else has done that yet.
Right, yeah.
So then, again, this comes back to those constraints. So now I say, okay, well, now I have a trick that I like, I performed, but now I'm going to do that trick on national television. I need to, make this thing amazing.
It feels like that old thing you were talking about when it's like, I got to do a 45-minute show. What can I do?
Yes.
Now they're like, you got to do this trick. And you're like, okay, what can I do to this trick to make it worthy?
Exactly. So I went on a wild goose chase, and I talked to all my friends, and different people had different ideas. And like the biggest one was the trick, original version of the trick. I just had the spectator shuffle and cut and deal piles. And at the end, I revealed the 4 aces, which is a fine trick. And then my friend Ryan Schlutz, who I brainstorm with him, almost every day, he says, why don't you have it say a message? So then we came up with the idea of, after all this shuffling and cutting, I said, there's only one question left to ask. And I turn over each pile. And as I do that, it spells a message. Did we fool you? And it's like perfect for the show. And then that's where it started to fall together. Again, method, presentation, build on top of each other, establish constraints. And that's how we ended up where we were.
Amazing. That's, it's always so much fun when we have guests that have been on Fool Us. Because when you ask them, what was it like, you would assume it was like, oh, I did this trick I always do. But every person has responded with, oh, I had to really reshape this whole thing just for this one performance. Yeah. And I think it's exciting to learn about sort of what the intent of your magic can be and how powerful that is. And how far you can carry that.
And it was a lesson to me as well. Like, that was a trick that I taught in my lectures, and like magicians liked it. And I just stopped thinking about, like, why would I just moved on to the next thing. And there's that old quote about like magicians stop thinking too soon. Yeah. And that was like a super punch in the face of like, all of the things that I did to that trick could have grown organically, like over the 2 years or 3 years or however long that I've been doing it. I just shelved it. Yeah. And then it was only when they were like, okay, now you're doing it on national television. You're not doing it just for a person at a show or at a lecture. You're on national television. And then I'm like,
it matters,
I got to make it better. And it has changed the way I look at everything. So the Fool Us also overlapped with my sort of new approach to my magic show of like, you know what? I'm not just doing the 45 minutes. Let's define the tricks I'm going to do. Once they find a slot, like I'm no longer, I used to buy the newest, coolest thing in magic and try to figure how to put it in my show. And now it's like, well, that's cool for another time, but I'm focusing on this. Again, I'm constrained within this boundaries, and I'm working to make that thing as good as I can make it.
And not only that, but the thought that a producer of a show would look at it and say, this is an interesting concept, is a reminder to us that sometimes we come up with a concept that's so interesting, and I don't know why we stopped doing it, right? And like, if you think about it in the bigger picture of all card tricks are somebody picks a card and you find it, you're like, hey, this is interesting. Like, sure. Hey, and you think like, if a producer would think that it's interesting, it might stick out in a regular spectator's mind, or it might, just as it feels unique to a producer of a show who sees hundreds of card tricks, submitted, maybe that it would be unique to somebody who maybe have seen dozens of card tricks in their lives and they want it to look different. So just a reminder that somebody important, or rather somebody who has an important perspective or point of view likes it, will have a really big impact on your Magic. By the way, it's so damn cool that you listen to the podcast.
Yeah, that's a great podcast. I love
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So as we get to the end, we have a bunch of wrap-up questions, which I have a little note because there's so many of them that I don't even remember.
I'll get the first one going.
No problem.
What's your, maybe you know them. What's your magical PSA?
PSA.
Just remind them what it is.
Yeah. For the listeners at home, maybe it's their first episode. So just a word of warning, it could or advice, just anything you think the Magic community, all our listeners at home need to hear. It could be start doing this, stop doing that, but the mic is yours.
Yeah, so I would say define a target. It doesn't even have to be a target that you're going to stay with. It could change every other day. Mine certainly changes all the time, but I think you have to have a target that you work towards, and all your efforts go towards that target. And then eventually I look at material that I performed 2 years ago and I go, oh my God, I was so off base, but I'm changing as a person. I'm gaining more knowledge. So now my target's moved, but I'm still moving towards that target. And I've been doing Magic like 18 years or something like that. And I love Magic, but it hasn't been until like the last 3 or 4 years that I start feeling like I'm progressing. Like I plateaued at a certain point and I just did cool tricks, but all my tricks were just cool tricks. And then once I started to define a target, I feel like I've progressed a lot.
I love the idea, and I think it's good advice for life, that you just work towards something. You end up making leaps and bounds. Another question very similar to that one is the Magic question of the week. So you have something to ask the world, whether it's a question that you want to hear everyone's response to, or it's a question that you want people to ask themselves. What question do you have for the magicians of the world?
I think everybody just needs to ask themselves why they do Magic. And literally any answer is right. And that answer can change. Like Eugene Berger, I think, had a quote about like, there's many rooms in the house of Magic. A really cool, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's the paraphrase. There's many rooms. If you like mathematical card tricks that would bore everyone else, just do that. Like it's just a big world, and like it's just it's not a trivial hobby. Like Magic can have importance in people's lives and it can be impactful, but we're not curing cancer here. If you're in your room and you like a certain kind of Magic, if you like oil and water, don't let people tell you that oil and water sucks. Just do oil and water. You'll figure it out for yourself and take your own path.
Awesome. Love it. New old question we're bringing back into the world.
Love this question.
It's a good question.
I don't know why we stopped.
I'm nervous now.
We actually, I guess it's slightly different too, because we have to change the numbers. So what's something in the 2018-2019 space you love about Magic, and what's something in the 2018-2019 space that you absolutely hate about Magic?
Man, I love a lot about Magic. I hate very little about Magic. The best thing in Magic is a free blog called The Jerks.
Yeah, what up? Big fan.
We're always plugging that.
It's amazing. It's life-changing. I don't think it's a coincidence. I mentioned over the last few years that I feel like I've really grown. That's when I started reading the blog. It was over the last 2 or 3 years, and it makes you question things. And sometimes I don't agree. Mostly I do agree, but it doesn't even matter. It just, he makes me think. I don't even know who this guy is, and I don't want to know. Like, that's part of it too. Like, I like the idea that there's this guy out there who gives advice and gives thoughts that only exists based on the quality of his thoughts. Like, he has no celebrity behind him. I guess now he sort of has like an underground collection of people, but like, if the blog sucked, no one would read it. Exactly. It's not like Michael Weber decides to put out a blog and we're like, oh, I got to listen. It's Michael Weber. What's he going to say?
It's purely on the merit of the writing.
Exactly.
And for the record, he said he would be on the podcast, but he did promise someone else an interview. And likely he's not going to do any interviews until the whole thing is wrapped up. So he said he'd be on, but there is one other person who somehow asked before. But it'll eventually be coming if you're wondering about that. And what's one thing in 2018, 2019 that you dislike?
I don't know. I think 99% of magicians are awesome, but there is, as somebody who's sort of an outsider in the chasing the next gig, chasing the how am I going to make it in the magic world, I just am disengaged from that. I create magic for myself and I share it with magicians because I like it, but I have a regular job and my income doesn't depend on magic. Yeah. So sometimes when I see magicians fighting over, what to me seems like, $1,000, a few $1,000, you ruin relationships, and I don't connect with that world. I would just urge people to, we're all human beings again. And like, it's just magic tricks, man. It's like the world is big. And I would like to see more of that go away. Just be yourself, be authentic when you're online.
Kumbaya magic community.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like,
I'm on board.
For sure.
I'm on board.
I love that. Another segment is the endless chain of magicians. So we want this podcast to go on for eternity. And one way to do that is to have each person on the podcast recommend someone else that they think we should have on the podcast, with the caveat that you would have to potentially put us in contact. No David Copperfields.
Gotcha. So there's two
Unless
people.
you have David Copperfield.
Let me just call him up right now.
Please say David Copperfield.
That's right. So I guess two people. Two of the people who I are part of that group of friends who I go to, and they usually move my ideas further, quicker than anybody else, would be Tyler Wilson. He's awesome. And then Brent Braun. He's another
Both
guy.
Great names.
Cool. Yeah.
Good guys to have on.
Not the last part. We have one more. So this is what we call the best part, or our favorite part. We just go around one at a time and highlight a part of the interview that we thought was, particularly important or just fun. And for me, I absolutely love the comparison between pro wrestling and magic. I've never thought about it like that. I've made comparisons for almost everything, like music, movies, painting. It's all related to magic, but pro wrestling was never in that part of my mind, and it seems even more directly related than painting, music, and all those things based on the conversation we had. Jonah, what about you?
I really loved the idea of loving what you do, and not just in sort of almost the wishy-washy sense, but in the sense that it could actually have a great effect on your magic, because you just start not worrying about what other people think. I mean, eventually you do, but you just start thinking about, what do I think is cool? What would I think be fun? What do I want to put on the stage? What do I want to put out? What do I want to perform? What do I want to be doing? And you end up having a stronger passion for it. And also, people wonder, like, where do my presentations come from? And where do, how could I come up with something? And the answer is to look in the bank of things that you enjoy. Look outside of magic, look inside of magic, look at what kind of person you are. And it'll really make an impact on your magic. And it's a great hole to look in to find the different things that will make what you do special and unique. So I love sort of putting a love into what you do. Caleb, what was one part that you think is worth highlighting?
I think just the idea of, people who get stuck in creative ruts a lot of times are hoping to be inspired like a Paul Harris. They think these ideas are going to come from on high and that they'll be groundbreaking and innovative. And that's not, I don't think, how most people create. It's certainly not how I create. It's more of an engineer approach of have a lot of information coming in, find something that inspires you, set some constraints, even if they're fake constraints. That's another thing with the Foolish trick. It was a response to a forum that I used to be a part of called theseconddeal.com, where they said, create a trick where you never touch the deck. That was it. And then my national television appearance, the coolest thing I've ever done in magic, came from just being on a forum and somebody posting that and me working on it. And, just setting those constraints allowed that to happen. So it's a way to push your magic forward creatively. I
love that. And finally, the last part is plug. What do you have to plug the magic world? Where can they find you and where can they buy your shit?
Gotcha. So I'm very much open to like conversations and like email, and like I like interacting with magicians. It's one of my favorite things to do. So you can just email me at my website, calebwiles.com, and even if you just want to talk magic, so that's how you get a hold of me. And then I'm super excited about a new project I released with Vanishing Ink. My first book, High Spots, was their very first product. So we launched sort of our magic things together. And now we've sort of, that's 9 years ago, something like that. Now I have a new DVD set. It's 2 discs. It's 16 tricks, and they're not like 16 tricks of like, okay, variation on this, variation on that, stuff I've seen a million times. It's all for better or worse. You may hate it or you may love it, but they're all different things in card
and they're
magic.
all like a lot of your hard hitting card stuff.
Yeah. So Vanishing Ink talked me into putting out, I had a list of my like 50 tricks I've ever created, and I put them in an Excel spreadsheet and I ranked them, the ones I like the best. And I said, look, I want to do 2 projects with you guys. I'm going to do these ones. And I just took the odd numbers in order. And I said, that's one project. And then this is the other project. And Vanishing Ink said, nope. We want the top 20 or whatever tricks, and I did. So it took some. And then the best part is I thought, you know what? If I am going to do that, then I want this to be, again, I don't depend on Magic for my income. So if I'm going to do it, I want to make a splash, and I want it to be something that everybody just thinks, yeah, you just got to get that. So we also made the whole thing $40. So for the price of basically 1 DVD, you're getting 2 DVDs of my best stuff. So I didn't hold things back, and I think that's something everybody should look into. You can just go to Vanishing Ink to pick that up. It's called Main Event, The Knockout Magic of Caleb Wiles.
And it'll definitely be out by the time that this airs, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, with that, Caleb, thank you so much. What a pleasure to have you on. Pleasure to watch you lecture, learn some magic directly from you. And once again, a big, huge thank you to the people at home. Your ears mean the world to us. So thank you for being here.
Clicks.
And your clicks.
Click,
so click stuff.
Scroll.
But we will see you all next Thursday.
Take care.
Peace.
Well, there you have it. I hope you learned something, whether about magic or pro wrestling or whatever. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you had just as much of a good time as we did. Once again, a quick reminder, there are still some t-shirts available. So if that's your thing, if you want to give us a little bit of support, have something to wear to go to sleep or to go out or to hit the clubs or, I don't know, wherever people wear t-shirts, now's the chance. You can find it on our website and find it everywhere. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all in 105.